Twice in the last week, parents have had to sit down with their kids and talk about scary stuff. Lockdowns in class due to a shooter hoax, students and teachers huddling in closets until they get the all clear, and then a bomb scare even before they got to school. And the backdrop for this? Actual unspeakable school shootings, like what happened at a Nashville elementary school late last month. North Country lawmakers on the record about school safety on today's Story of the Day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Long Run Wealth, an SEC-registered investment advisor in Lake Placid, providing comprehensive wealth management, retirement, and financial planning solutions. LongRunWealth.com.
Hey, I'm David Summerstein. It's Wednesday, April 5th. First up, all is quiet at the state capitol in Albany, now that lawmakers have left for spring holidays despite not yet completing a state budget that was due April 1st. As Karen DeWitt reports, differences over whether to once again change New York's bail reform laws continue to simmer.
Governor Kathy Hochul held up the budget for 9 days last year to successfully win changes to the state's 2019 bail reform laws. The laws, which ended many forms of cash bail, have been controversial. Supporters say it prevents lengthy stays in jail for people who are accused of minor crimes but can't afford to post bail. But opponents say the laws have been a factor in the crime spike that began during the pandemic. They say they should be fully repealed. Hochul has tried to walk a middle line, saying the law does improve things for those accused of misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. But she says the laws need to be further revised to give judges more discretion to set bail when someone is charged with more serious crimes. Hochul, in an interview with Public Radio in late March, said she wants to get rid of the requirement that judges must use the least restrictive means when deciding whether to set bail for someone accused of a felony.
I'm working hard to have policies that make sense, to give clarity to judges so there's no inconsistency, that we deal with the serious offenses. And this is what New Yorkers want us to do.
Hochul has public opinion polls on her side, along with the aid of a political action committee partly funded by billionaire businessman Michael Bloomberg, which is running ads supporting the governor's proposals.
9 out of 10 New Yorkers agree crime is a serious problem. People want the bail laws fixed and action on public safety.
So far, Democrats who lead both houses of the legislature have not been swayed. Assembly Speaker Carl Hastie says he and his members are reluctant to once again change the bail reform laws because they don't believe that the data shows that bail reform has contributed to the crime spike. He points to a John Jay College study that found the law was working and reduced recidivism rates for those accused of misdemeanors and nonviolent felonies. And Hastie says while other states have given judges more power to determine whether an accused person presents a danger to themselves or others, they have not seen a corresponding reduction in crime.
Our next door neighbor in New Jersey, their index crimes are up. They have a dangerousness standard. So that's what I'm saying. This is the difficulty that you have in trying to deal with a perception problem when the data is up all across the nation, even in states, like I said, that have a dangerousness standard. They have pretrial detention. None of those things have been able to solve the issue of crime going down.
The speaker acknowledges, though, that a public perception that things are less safe is real and needs to be addressed. But he says bail reform has been made the scapegoat. Senate Republican Minority Leader Robert Ortt backs Hochul's proposal, but wishes it went further. He says instead of arguing about the root causes for the crime spike, Democratic lawmakers should ask themselves if the current bail laws are making things safer.
Are these laws making New Yorkers more safe? Are we helping with the spike in crime? Is it contributing to it? Or is it just adding to the chaos, another log on the fire?
Ortt, who has held office for 8 years, says he's never seen the budget process lag this far behind. And he says many key issues, including how much the total spending should be and how to pay for it, have yet to be addressed.
The first time I can ever remember getting to this date with really just absolutely no clarity on a state budget, even a framework.
Also unresolved is the question of whether to raise taxes to finance the spending. Ort and Hochul oppose raising taxes on the rich. Democrats in the Senate and Assembly back an increase. Ort says this year's budget process harkens back to earlier decades when state budgets were often weeks or even months late. In Albany, I'm Karen DeWitt.
As we reported yesterday, Governor Kathy Hochul says state police and the FBI are looking into yesterday's bomb hoax at more than a dozen North Country schools, as well as last week's false shooter calls. But it's all happening after last week's school shooting in Nashville, which left 6 people dead. And it's reigniting the conversation about how to address firearm access and school safety in the United States. Kara Chapman reached out to some of the North Country's Republican state and federal elected officials about what they think should be done.
Congresswoman Elise Stefanik was in Plattsburgh Monday for the return of Amtrak's Adirondack line. Before the train arrived, she spoke with reporters. I asked her about the Nashville shooting.
Will the House Republican majority move to restrict access to combat-grade weapons like AR-15s that were used in the Nashville shooting and many others?
I have made my position very, very clear. First of all, I think it's important to note that all of America mourns for the horrific loss, and as a mom in particular of a young child, I grieve for those families, for those parents.
The victims of the Nashville shooting were 3 9-year-olds and 3 school employees. The shooter, Audrey Elizabeth Hale, legally obtained 7 guns beforehand. Nashville police say Hale brought 3, including an assault-style semi-automatic rifle, to the school and discharged 152 rounds before being fatally shot by police. Stefanik said she thinks providing federal funding for school resource officers and addressing mental health will help improve school safety. The Nashville school did not have an SRO, and police have said Hale was under care for an emotional disorder.
But the knee-jerk response to ban guns is unacceptable, and it's overly political. Let's get all the facts first, and let's work to solve this. And
I asked the North Country's other Congresswoman, Claudia Tenney, what the House Republican majority was going to do to address gun violence in schools and make students, teachers, and families feel safe. She sent a statement. She criticized Governor Kathy Hochul and Albany Democrats for, quote, targeting law-abiding gun owners with blatantly unconstitutional restrictions. Assembly Republicans, who are in the minority in Albany, have a task force that recently put out recommendations for improving school safety and security. The report echoes national Republican priorities, like increasing law enforcement presence, addressing mental health, and more funding for infrastructure. GOP Assemblyman Matt Simpson says he hopes Republicans can work with a Democratic majority to help some of the recommendations come to fruition. He says they came out of meetings with school administrators, law enforcement, mental health experts, and others.
And I think we need to do more of that. To really nail down, action items that we need to take right now.
The Assembly Minority's report didn't mention anything about further restricting gun access in New York State or how guns purchased out of state could threaten school safety. I asked Simpson about why that was.
It was brought up in how we keep children safe from all threats, whether it be drugs, issues with other students, any weapon. It wasn't specifically just towards guns.
Simpson says he hopes the final state budget keeps Governor Kathy Hochul's billion-dollar mental health proposal. He also wants the state to take over funding for school resource officers. The Nashville shooting occurred days before active shooter hoax calls forced many schools in the North Country and elsewhere into lockdown. On Tuesday, some were hit again, this time with false bomb threats. Stefanik, who spoke before the second round of so-called swatting incidents, said the active shooter hoax calls needed to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
To have individuals try to take advantage of this really uncertain time, it is horrible, and any type of resources that are needed by law enforcement to track down who those callers are, we fully support that to make sure they're prosecuted fully.
Assemblyman Scott Gray and State Senator Mark Walczyk are sponsoring bills that would make swatting a felony in New York State. Walczyk said in a statement, quote, heightened penalties on these egregious acts will open up tools for law enforcement to gather and prosecute bad actors. Kara Chapman, North Country Public Radio.
This reporting, the breaking news, getting our lawmakers on the record about issues in our lives, It's only possible because you donate to NCPR to keep our news department fully funded and enterprising. It's our spring fundraiser right now. Make your donation for strong local journalism at ncpr.org/give. Music today by Ramon Vasquez and Michael Hart of Malone and Adrian Carr of Plattsburgh. I'm David Summerstein, North Country Public Radio.